do we see Singapore heading towards being a mature liberal two-party democracy? Where do we see this heading? And you know what, I asked this question. I mean, I think the Emeritus Minister Lee Kuan Yew had a quote some time ago. He said that we've only got enough for Team A. But in my mind, I think if we've only got enough for Team A, we don't have a plan B, which is why we do need more opposition voices, for instance. But I ask this to give some context. I'm highly cognizant of what's happening in the States and in Australia, mature liberal two-party democracies. There's a lot of infighting when you have two parties. For instance, we've seen what happened with K. Rudd and Julia Gillard and all of that. And even in the States...
No, but K. Rudd and Julia Gillard were within the same party.
Exactly. So, I mean, within the same party as well as externally. I mean, if you look at... the Democrats and the Republicans, what's going on with that, and as well as infighting within the Republican Party, So I want to ask, Singapore is a very small country and we've done incredibly well. Can Singapore survive being a two-party democracy, or should it just be a case of denying a two-third majority? I want to get the views of everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is this really, could this change in vote, could this dip in popularity of the PAP not just be due to the new generation or the desire for voices, but it's just that since 2001, the PAP's policies have already been eroding in their not being able to deliver the goods, so to speak. And this is just a natural progression, not a sudden change brought on by a new mindset or new generation of Singaporeans. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Nivi and David. If I just summarize, I think Nivi was asking whether a two-party system was emerging, and David was asking whether the PAP's performance is because of perhaps policies which were not developing and not so much a generational change, as Prof had suggested. So maybe why don't we look at the question on the generational change, and let's ask Prof whether it was just a failure of policy. And say, for example, if policies were actually good and they had delivered in the views of the people, not that they were bad, but that they were delivering, that it did not matter whether there was a generational change.
Okay, I think first of all, I think one has to be quite careful when looking at statistics of the percentages that the PAP gain, because when you look at all these various elections compared to this particular election, you will find that in the earlier elections, many of the GRCs were in fact uncontested. So you can never really tell what was going on in those constituencies. So if people were not happy, maybe they had no choice. I mean, they don't like drinking coffee, but I need a drink. And I got no tea, so I have to drink the coffee because that's all there is. Whereas now you have a choice, right? And again, to carry on the coffee metaphor, it's not just a question of coffee or tea. Sometimes they still want the coffee, but they would prefer it a little bit sweeter. So it's very tricky how you look at the results. I think that you could say with some confidence that perhaps over the years the resentment was getting stronger, but we are in life we can be very unhappy about certain things, but we may not do anything about it. It is a question of where the tipping point was. And maybe the tipping point, I think it's a generational change. Perhaps it's not. Maybe it's a culmination of all these things, which is what the PAP themselves analyze it to be. Inflation, there was all these issues that they were not happy. You got a triple or quadruple whammy, and that's why they lost all those votes. It could well be all these things put together. So statistics got to be very careful, because you got to look at how many seats were actually contested over the years. And you had an almost unprecedented number of seats contested in this round. Every single constituency except for Tanjong Pagar, almost every single one.
Sushan, generational change, I can't say generational change or just failure of policy.
I think it's an interesting question, and whether or not we will end up with a two-party system will really depend on whether the opposition will continue or will be able to attract the best talent. I would give Singaporean voters, the benefit of being smart voters, i.e. we're not stupid. We're not going to just vote because we like the look of somebody, or we might have the online verbiage, but I think at the end of the day, when we go in the booth and we put an X around the label, it's going to be a lot more studied and hopefully calm and a decisive vote based on policy. And when we place that act, it really will depend on who are you facing at that election. And, is the PAP going to be able in the next 5 years to attract the best talent, the people who will best deliver the right policies for us for the next 5 years, or is it the Workers' Party or some other party? And that is, I'm afraid, still, to me, it's still an open question. Because it's tougher for the men and women in white, right? As you said so in town yourself, because you wear white, people will automatically assume, you're on the incumbent. So it's tougher for the men and women in white. But also kudos to the opposition party. They have attracted some good talent in the House. So I would like to see more debate, frankly. I would like to see more enthusiastic and a policy debate. We didn't see a lot of that yet. I hope it comes, because I think the incumbency advantage is huge, If you've been there for 40 over years, you've got a whole machinery behind you to give you all the sound bites and all the data and all the help you need to come up with a great debate. The NMPs and all of us were struggling with research on our own, getting some help. I've got some great help, but still, it's not easy. So it's therefore not easy to have that sort of conclusive or that sort of interesting or invigorating debate that we all want to see, right? So I hope to see more of that, really, going forward, and that will perhaps pave the way for more clarity as to whether or not we see a two-party system or not.
Dr. Intan, does the PAP feel threatened that this two-party system may start to rise, or even just the denial of the two-thirds majority, as Nivi mentioned?
The two-party system, if you look at some countries, some Western democracies, it's not been easy having two parties. There's always, when you have that kind of strong two parties or fighting for coalition government, there's always a tendency to do what is popular rather than what is right over the long term. But who are we to say? Who are we to decide? Who are we to foretell the future? It's not going to be easy if it's two-party, for sure. But like what Sushen mentioned, we just have to wait and see what's going to happen. But there are difficulties, having a two-party system, because there's always a tendency to be populist. Yeah? With regard to PAP performance over the last decade, who was it who mentioned it?
David.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of many different factors. It's not just that generational shift, but also sentiments of Singaporeans over time, over many years, when they felt that certain policies, while probably the intent was good, the fact that maybe those policies did not quite change with what they expect or what, according to how Singaporeans feel, that builds up over time. And it's not just one policy, it's probably a combination of sentiments over a few different policies. So, but at the same time, like what Prof. Kevin Tan mentioned, you have to be careful when you look at statistics, because yes, no doubt in the last election we only scored 60%, but that's still a majority, and that's a majority when almost all the seats were contested. Yeah. So if you compare that across the other elections, the other earlier elections, when there were many GRCs that were uncontested, of course the results are not quite comparable. Okay, not one-to-one. So I would say that in the last election, a lot of sentiments were brewing very strongly, and I felt it too. When I was asked in one of the tea sessions about foreign workers, foreign labour, I said, yes, it's true. You see a lot of foreign workers everywhere, not just among the professionals, but also for those who are cleaning tables or who are doing menial jobs, when those jobs can be given to Singaporeans. So it is felt by everyone, at all levels. So the sentiments are strong and are real. And sentiments will usually drive you to do something. Yeah, not always rationality, not always the head, but it's also the heart that matters.
Thanks, Intan.
Yeah, on the first question, whether there will be a two-party, well, it really depends on a number of factors. One is that, frankly, we are more concerned about building on what we have now rather than to have a crystal ball to look into the future. Because the only way for two-party to happen is that there must be enough talent that we can attract to come in. And I maintain that we have enough talent. It's just whether people want to come out of the shell and come out. And whatever stand they want to take, whichever party, more people should come out. And the environment must be such that people should not be so afraid of making that move to come out. And of course, I will hope to see one day that situation will come. But really, what we are protecting now is a pretty fragile thing. We may think there's a major breakthrough, but compared to a lot of countries, what is 6 elected MPs out of 87? We are still a long, long way to even that happening. And of course, what is important is that we must make sure that we maintain our momentum, we maintain the credibility that we have built up to get to there. I personally believe that no single party should have monopoly of all the best ideas. So I think it's open competition for that.
Thanks, Angel.
Yeah, as regards to two-party system, I think it is up to the people what they really want. And even there's a multi-party system, 2, 3 parties or 4 parties, it still is to the interest of the people. And I think it will still work if they are really for the people of Singapore, for Singaporeans. They will get together to get the act together. And somehow or other, one day, a 2-party system will emerge eventually. But I don't see it happening now. Maybe there might be a multi-party system, maybe 2-party, 3-party. Then later on, as time goes by, it's up to the people's wishes, the interest of them who wants to have a 2-party. They themselves will cast a constitutional right, they vote for the right party that they want to, and eventually they may have a 2-party system. And as regards to generation change, I agree with Prof of all the factors that is in, about this change. But I think there's one thing is also people are fed up of policies that hurt people. I think that also accounts for some of the votes that go for the opposition.